Welcome to the High Pressure Podcast with me, George Ratermann.
And me, Marie Williams. Brought to you by Reliably Ratermann.
Bringing you industry news and trends.
Plus, insightful conversations with industry leaders.
Let's get to today's show. So, we have Laurence Haughton here. We're now in the Idea Vault. And we've been locked in, and we now have only a couple choices. Stay locked in or come up with some good ideas. And the thought of the Idea Vault was really to create an environment, really thinking of that. Ideas are sometimes very small thoughts, but they spawn into very valuable, very important things. So that was where the Idea Vault came from. Like, we have ideas. Where can those ideas go? What can they become? You know, in your earlier talk on the High Pressure Podcast, we talked about an integrated circuit. Where did an integrated circuit become, and what other things happen because of that, right? So we're going to spend a little time today in discovering some ideas. Who knows where it's going to go? It'll be a journey. I consider this fun for the mind kind of moments. You know, it's going to be a cool experience for me, and I'm hoping it'll be the same for you. And I'm hoping for all of our folks that are going to be viewing and listening, it'll be a fun ride for them as well. So the room is set up with two kind of concepts here. We still have safety deposit boxes on each side. We have two different sides of the vault here. One side is really geared towards the Bourbon Trail, because we have a couple facilities in Houston, but we also have facilities in Nashville, our largest facilities in Nashville, and then, of course, California. So the one side represents the Bourbon Trail and all the fun things down that trail. And the other side, kind of the California side, is all the different wines. I kind of got the George Ratermann wine trail that I kind of enjoy to go to from Southern California, working way up to Napa and Sonoma. And Livermore Valley, where we're at right now, has an amazing amount of wines. Matter of fact, I think it's the oldest wineries and family wineries in Livermore. It's 6th or 7th generation now, Winty Winery. They stayed open during Prohibition. So that's one of the reasons they had that claim to fame, making Sacramento wine. So here we are, thinking about ideas. And the way this works is we have sets of bottles. And on these bottles, we have questions. And we have two sets of bottles. We have wine bottles, and then we have bourbon bottles. The wine bottles are more business kind of questions specifically. And the bourbon bottles are more bigger idea thoughts and questions. What geared towards are back to, it could be life elements, but it's really geared more towards back to business. So I think this is gonna be fun for you. And we got different questions. And what we can do is we grab a bottle. You could grab any bottle and ask a question, right? So I could grab them for you, or you could grab one yourself. What would you like to do? Would you like to grab the first bottle?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Here, go grab one. I'll grab one after that. I'll let you get the first one. Okay, there we go. So I will. This, by the way, this is called Wisdom Bourbon. Have a little fun with it. Year in proof, not yet bottled, but it's to be, right? What do you think a cell phone will look like in 10 years, and what new things can it do? Well, that's a big one here. What do you think a cell phone will look like in 10 years, and what new things can it do?
Long time ago, really smart guy said, the longer you can look back, the farther forward you can see.
Oh, okay.
And that was really a thing about studying history. But in the case of a cell phone, I don't need to study history. You probably don't need to either, because we were there, had a front row seat when they invented the thing.
Yeah.
And how it was invented was this unit, actually two pieces. One was the broadcasting unit, and the other one was the head, the speak into it unit, the phone unit. And they were two units, and they were created, and it made phone calls. And then time went on, and some other things got digitized, and I would have things like a digital camera. And I had a iPod. Right. My son got me started with that. And we had a thing in the car. I think it was called Garmin.
Yeah,
but
Garmin,
it was
right.
GPS, it was in the car,
yeah.
and it gave me directions, so I didn't have to use maps anymore.
Right.
And it did all of those things. And in looking back, because we could see the cell phone, what it became is this unit that was actually just like in our pocket, right? And it could do all these things.
Right.
And they put them all. I sent you a picture of that. All these people that were put out of work.
Yeah.
These little, it's a cartoon of all these people put out of work because it's all right there in the cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking backward, what did we see? We saw that the unit was, first of all, made, lots of people would have them, right? So I think we're at like 380 million cell phone numbers in the United States alone right now, more than the number of people. And we are also, originally they thought there might be a market for like 650,000 of them max total.
Yeah.
So we have the cell phone. It has all these capabilities and it just keeps adding more. And it's right there with us and it's always in our pocket or it's always in our handbag, briefcase, whatever we're doing. What is it going to do? I'm thinking, what is it going to do? What I think is going to happen over the next few years and be processed out over 10. I think the cell phone is going to become our personal device for getting the answers that we need to do better at business. So in other words, a manager might have to ask themselves, I've got a difficult conversation to have with an employee who's prickly. They will be able to go to their cell phone, ask it that question, and get an answer. Now, George, that might sound like AI, right?
Yeah.
But let's take it one step further. Remember when we were having our other conversation about tribal knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine that AI in the phone is not consultant talk or HR speak or Harvard Business Review. No. Imagine it's the tribal knowledge, or in other words, the people in the company who have had a good run at having difficult conversations give you their hint. So now it's specific to your company. It fits your culture. It also comes from somebody right there who you can say, I know that person. That person knows what they're doing. That's a pretty good hint. And it all can be brought into the phone, the cell phone, the personal assistant that's in your pocket, so that when you want an answer, it can give you a quick answer. It could give you a more elaborate answer, but it can also give you an answer that suits you. And P.S. How do they know that you asked the question?
Yeah.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't know what you're doing. It's all private. It's all secure. It's all yours. And by the way, should you ask the same question twice, they don't give you any judgment.
Yeah.
It's none
Right.
of that.
That's
Not
true.
one of those. Oh, didn't I tell you this yesterday?
Yeah. Right.
What's the deal? There's none of that because there it is. It's just an agent in the phone on your person to help you to make your life easier.
Yeah.
To make it easier for you.
So I have this concept on cell phones. What I like to think sometimes, like, what will it not be able to do, right?
Okay.
And sort of go to that path. But I also like to think about the fact that maybe it's a completely non-physical item any longer. So my thinking is maybe 10 years from now, it becomes a predictive tool that is utilizing the environment that you're in. The environment you're in is always smart. So whether it be bricks in a building have certain sensors, or it picks up all the things your body's chemistry's moments is at. It knows when you ate last, bio-wise, you're probably going to be pretty hungry. So maybe this is some things you're going to be aware of. And then where you're at, what can it suggest to you? And then based on what other parameters you put in your life, it's going to make recommendations based on that, because you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to eat more protein, whatever it might be. And conceptually, that it's doing things that interact with the things you want to do things. So that maybe it's not my fantasy of a phone, but really interacting the other, almost like changing robotics to a different perspective. That becomes the robot in a sense, because it's doing and having other things do things, knowing where you're predictably going to want to have it done.
So it's not a physical device. It's embedded in the environment that you're in.
Yeah, I almost.
And it knows you.
It knows you, and it's almost as if you almost like we walk into a Wi-Fi environment, and it picks up on that, and it always has your profile and everything else. I mean, there would have to be some kind of sensors on your clothing, your body, and everything else to be able to give feedback. But I just wonder if it wouldn't be just a complete paradigm shift of not a physicality of a piece of box that almost melds the computer, and almost all becomes cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be, and it'd be fun to think of what are all the changes that would happen because of that. What are all the other dynamic of things and opportunities would happen because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's again, why did it go from 650,000, which is the smartest consulting company in the world, thought that was the maximum number of units that could be sold, to 380 million, more than one per person in the United States?
Yeah.
Why did it go to that? It went to that because it was just what we wanted.
Yeah.
A way to connect, without voice. So there was the text, something that knew you. The unit would have that information. You would be able to customize it to yourself. Now it's voice activated.
Yeah.
So I'm on the phone and I'm saying to myself, I'm on this website and I need to call these people. And sometimes, I don't know, it's probably the size of my fingers, but I get really messed up when I'm using the touch screen. So I can just say, hey Siri, call this number.
Right. Amazing.
And and the number gets called. And so it just makes my life easier. Sorry,
I don't have a life easier number for Laurence.
Okay, thanks a lot, Siri.
Don't mention it.
That was great.
But
okay,
the phone takes that next step of making your life easier, whether it's the life at work or it's the life in the environment.
Yeah.
It makes the step of making the life easier. And where would it do that? And that was my idea on it. And I like your idea too, because there's a lot of things I'm trying to do and I need help.
Yeah. Well, I think the big shift was the fact that you have apps. The fact that you have something that wasn't just a one-time program piece of equipment. It's living and breathing and changing because you got an app and somebody does a new app update, whatever it might be, to have the ability to know, I need to make a few changes to be able to do an update to an app. And now all of a sudden your device can do that. New feature.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful. Okay. So now we're going to go on to, I'm going to pick one right here. I don't know what this one's going to be, but we'll find out. Sorry. That's a repeat there, isn't it? Oh, this is a good one. If you could travel into the future, what year would you like to visit and why? That's interesting because it's traveling in the future. What year would you like and why to visit? I'm interested in the past, right? We could think of something in the past would be really unique. And so I could think of something in the past. I would love to know. I'd like to go back to 1556 or something where Nostradamus was there and just sit and talk to him for a while and just understand exactly why and where he thought all these things were going to happen in the future. But this is for the future. So where and why in the future? What year?
I may not get the opportunity, but what I really want to see are these grandchildren as adults.
Yeah.
So if I could travel into the future, it would be in and around 20 or 25 years from now.
Yeah.
Because 4.5, 2, and 1 month old, that puts me at an adult.
That's so interesting you say that because I had the similar thought. I had the trifecta. Could I have my daughter, her daughter, and her daughter? So would it be possible to go back in that span of time to have my daughter there with her daughter that's got a daughter that's getting married? I thought, so for me, that was about 30 years from now, maybe 30, 40 years from now. Yeah, about 40 years now. So 20, 64, 2070, maybe 2070. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to go back to.
Yeah.
I have another one to throw this thought at you. Think of this one here. This is kind of cool. So when it's totally viable and fully production fusion. Fusion is operating and running as a power source across the world, whatever fashion, compact as it may be or not, but it's running as a really truly, not nanoseconds that it can operate, but it actually is running as a real energy source. I think that'd be an interesting year to go in the future to see, and what else would change around that, and all the things that could manifest from that.
And when you say fusion, I mean, I'm not an engineer, so explain that to me a little bit.
Well, really how the sun works, so it's creating hydrogen, and it's actually self-sustaining itself. So unlike where it's breaking down, unlike today where we have our nuclear reactors, which are producing power, but they're pretty inefficient and have a lot of other side effects. I just find that an exciting time where instead of having fusion versus fission,
So in looking backward, we're looking at all the things that happened because they were able to harness the power of the petrochemical.
That's right. Yes, right.
So we're looking at all the changes that happened, the fact that we don't have to take months and months to travel to see a relative who lives on the other side of the country.
Right.
I mean, that's a petrochemical thing.
Right.
There are other things like that. Now, when fusion comes forward, that's an energy source, correct?
Right.
And so that's going to make all kinds of things possible. What kinds of things?
Possible, and things will also be other things will change, right? Not be necessary. So, and I think that's the exciting thing. What are all the dynamics of what is now able to be done? What could be done? It could be desalination plants are much more effective in energy consumption. It could be transportation. It could be all the issues we have around carbon and based products and things. So,
well, like desalination means that everyone has all the fresh water that they need, which is a building component of life, right?
Right.
And then also for farming.
Yeah.
So that would what desalination would do.
Right.
And then what was the other thing that you mentioned?
I was just thinking all the different aspects of what changes. What do you do today with oil? There's positive things that it does. There's some negative things. What's the environment? But also when all of a sudden, I mean, we know, like, for instance, data centers take a ton of energy today.
Right.
Now probably at that time, this is maybe 30 years away till we're going to have this, I hope. Maybe the data centers would be quite different than they are today. But what are the things you could do that normally you'd say would take so much power would just not be realistic to be able to do it? And maybe then with this ability, there might be the whole new horizon of things could come from that.
Well, power certainly is one of the things that it did. Is it gave us the ability to control the internal environment, and that meant that factories could operate 24 hours a day with shifts of people, because we had both light and we had warmth in the cold and coolness from the heat.
Yeah.
And all those things are due to our energy.
Yeah.
And what you're doing with fusion then is you're solving the negative elements of what petrochemicals can create in terms of both pollution and possibly alterations to the climate environment.
I also think like really rare elements that you can maybe make, with lasers and all for a very small amount and all. What kind of cool things can you manifest developing your own new kind of periodic table, but to be able to do it in volume, be able to make a volume of that material, which would be a tremendous amount of power. But what could those new materials do that, we obviously when, people are doing aircrafts, all of a sudden having aluminum or titanium and different things that they could utilize for weight and strength. But there might be some really cool things that come from that. I just think it'd be a really fascinating time period of evolution of things that could be opportunities that weren't even thoughts before, maybe.
One of the concepts that came from the early days of people like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, who wrote what were called the fictional science, the science of the imagination. They wrote those kinds of books. what they said was they helped invent the future. And they said they helped invent the future because boys and girls read those fantasy books, science fiction. They would read those science fiction books, and then they would take their education and figure out, how do you make that come true? How can you be all those leagues under the sea?
Right.
How can you have an environment there where people can conduct research over long periods of time? How can you fly in the air immediately lifting off and traveling?
Yeah.
How can you do these different things? And what your thought is sparking possibly some kid's imagination that will get into engineering, fusion, and make what you were just talking about possible.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something to have a whole different industry, just developing and making custom materials that would be the best for a particular application or whatever you're trying to do? So have customized periodic table.
Yeah. I mean, you're by bringing that to them and talking to them about it, that's where you'd spark that imagination.
That's the greatest part about the human brain of human beings, is that we can look at ideas and thoughts, and like we're talking about, and you never know where they go and what they can do. But if you can think of it, usually you can get some way in which you get there. I always find it interesting. You could look at things 100 years ago, and they'll have a thing of like what people thought it would look like 100 years later.
Yeah.
That's always fascinating. They would have a concept of automation, but they had automation concept for the time period that they were in. And that automation still could get done. It was just going to get done maybe differently.
Right.
We're going to plant seeds automatically, but maybe it's planted quite differently than what the concept would be. But they would have some really interesting perspectives. So I enjoy going back and looking at some of those older things, as you said, to go back and look at things that usually spawns a new idea.
It does.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah. It's well worthwhile. The fusion thing has got me thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we grab one of these bottles? These would be a little more business, I think.
All right. From nowhere, but
okay. Thank you. Okay. So this is our uncorked potential red and white blend. It's a little bit of humor. Solution Vineyards. What makes my business vulnerable? So I can ask you what makes your business vulnerable. What makes your business vulnerable? You're writing books?
Well, I guess on the writing book side of things, a couple of things come up. People don't read. They don't
really.
They don't read like they did, and a lot of people find that to be a fault amongst people. I don't. I find it to be simply the way the world has evolved. And so one of the things that affects the business that I'm in is that technology has made the communication of ideas take different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do I have to be able to do is adjust myself to be able to create, for example, a podcast, a vidcast, a chalk talk using advanced video technology. I have to be able to write scripts in bursts so that they can be created as almost small film projects.
Oh.
I have to marry those things together and say, okay, this is the way they like to receive their information. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
What are the technologies that exist right now, and how can I get that done? So I'm even looking at my home setup and saying, all right, how can I do better, quicker editing at home to make something for people? But the other thing, as I told you in doing airplane books, how can I get it down to 5 minutes? Could I get it down to 1.5 minutes? Now, is that the whole story? No, but that's the burst that they want. And then they can click and get more.
Yeah.
And that's where the internet comes in terms of links and that. So what has it done? I mean, I got great respect for Gutenberg, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And ink on paper is simply a means of communication.
Yeah.
Now we adjust that to all of our current technology and say, how am I going to get this across to them? Personally, I'm looking at more stories. And how do I get stories across to people?
Yeah.
How do I get them so that they can listen to the story? How does the story get structured? And how does it work? I'm looking a lot into the storytelling aspect that has then a theme that conveys the other messages I want based on story.
What I love about everything you just said is I asked you a question. I said, what makes your business vulnerable?
Yeah.
And what you just described is how you looked at everything as an opportunity of what additionally, how cool is that? You just talked about 4 or 5 different forums that you can get your message out in a totally different way that might hit a different audience in a different way and have different experiences. So really, it's almost kind of nice that you have that kind of a conflict in the world right now, because it's spawning you to do things differently and look for opportunities to do it differently.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's, the thing is that you don't want to just stand still, and you don't want to say, look, you people should be reading more books because what they do is what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change that except by getting engaged, connected with them. And then maybe I have a link they can click on, and there's a chapter, and it's 12 pages, and it's 3,000 words, and they look at that, or maybe it sparks somebody else to say, let me turn that into a small film, a small video, a small.
But what's interesting is you're right. You write books, and now here you're talking about making small films.
Yeah.
Right. And so all that. So that's why I think it's really cool when you have a situation like all of us. It gets back to some of your books, reinventing yourself, and all the good things that come with that. But you're right. Sometimes I think all of us can find ourselves saying, well, our people just read more, my problem would go away. Right. But that's not the way the world's going. They're now listening to audiobooks and doing many other kind of things. But also there's opportunity, I think, in there, because you probably have the ability to maybe get to 3 times as many people between a podcast and between audible books and written books and articles and videos and all the different things, YouTube and all the areas you can get things across. Do you do a lot with YouTube today?
No, not currently, but I was talking about finding and talking to people about their opportunity to do something great.
Yeah.
More than a book, I think you could call it YouTube, whoever it is. It's a package where you do an interview, where you let them talk, where you let them be exposed. I'm a halfway decent editor, so I can pick out what's really cool, and I can make people look awfully good. So I'm pretty good at that. I can talk to people, draw it out of them, package it up, let people look at that, and then we could backtrack into deeper subjects that are attached to what it is that they said. And I think that's along the lines of YouTube.
Yeah, that is. That's great.
Yeah.
But when you do one of those, gosh,
pardon me?
When you do one of those, let me know. I'd love to.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Kind of catalyst was being here talking to you about it.
Well, that's really the idea vault, right? I mean, we have all we need to do is walk away with one thing. All the folks listening, they all have their own environments that they're working on, subjects and issues and problems and opportunities. All we need is one good spark that goes down there, that aha moment, right?
Yeah.
So
So
great.
For me, the vulnerability is people don't read.
Yeah. Which ironically becomes your opportunity. Yes.
Which ironically points you towards another direction.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pull one of these guys out. Oh, this is kind of a fun one. From the Wisdom Bourbon here. By the way, this is a top shelf idea, so it's not just any type of bourbon.
Oh, boy.
Can you think of any jobs that may no longer exist in 50 years' time?
Any jobs that will no longer exist.
Can you think of any
50
jobs
years' time?
No longer exist in 50 years' time.
Well, I guess the one trend in terms of jobs has been the traditional manager's job. I mean, that has been shrinking already, and now they're talking about shrinking it even more with AI and the rest of it. But that's the traditional manager's job, which was the traditional manager's job was to count things and make sure that people did the job that they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
In other words, count their output, count the inventory output, and all the rest of it. So that continues to contract, and that's going to contract even more. I talked with a company not 3 months ago where one manager had 27 direct reports.
Wow.
Well, that was my reaction. Wow. That seems awfully hard. But instead of arguing with the company that they shouldn't do that, I immediately thought to myself, how could I make it easier for somebody with 27 direct reports to not do a lousy job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like be a bumblebee and drop a little pollen or grab a little pollen from each flower. You know, if you had 27 direct reports, you still need a way to have an impact with each one of them. I mean, you're looking to get stuff done. That's what it made me think. But when I heard the 27, my reaction was yours. Wow. Is that a trend of jobs that's going to continue? Now, what that doesn't include is, of course, the leadership function.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a part of the management job that no AI can do.
Yeah.
AI just can't make that connection to be a good leader. AI can't give you a purpose, and AI can't share your and celebrate with you.
Right.
You know, as you mentioned earlier, AI can't really be by your side as you're going forward. You have a room here that's called Mentor.
Yes.
Which is all about accompanying.
Yeah. Right.
Show me how that can do it, because it's not human. What you want is somebody next to you as you're traversing that snow-covered road that's difficult to get through in Lake Tahoe.
Right.
You're not on the regular path; you're on a offbeat path, but you got to get somewhere, and it's nice to have somebody next to you.
Yeah.
So the leadership part of it, I don't think that will disappear, but the manager part is going to be reduced.
Yeah, you know, the thing is about, you know, because we are in the idea vault and thinking of ideas that can help us in our business, 50 years is quite a ways out. You know,
it is.
You could do the same thing and say, what will be different, whether it be a job or applications people are doing, but also what will be new. So what's 10 years out, 20 years out, 50 years out? 50 years out, you could pretty well say there's certain jobs that are probably going to go away. I mean, with the way the technology, the speed it's going. And I like thinking about those kind of things because where's the opportunity? Because that means if something's going away, that means something's replacing it probably. So what's that new thing that's going to replace it, which probably we'll need new things to support that. So that could be a fun spot if people are thinking what's going to really probably not be there 5 years, 10 years or majorly impacted in 5-10 years. You know, I look at some of the things like, you know, autonomous cars and all. That really was in place 5 years from now, 10 years ago. How many other things would change? And then how many other ways could you maybe take opportunity of that would help your business?
Yeah.
You know, that you could do things in a different way. And can you plan that? And can you drive that to happen? You know, versus I think a lot of times these things are happening. It looks like a bad thing. You know, it could be like, oh, these bad things are going to happen. You know, certain jobs are going to go away. But that doesn't mean certain other jobs don't come into play.
Well, isn't it really that adaptability mindset and that adaptability organization that you can belong to where they help you adapt to a different future?
Yeah.
And of course, for a lot of businesses, their whole thing was, how can we keep change from happening? How can we just stop it? Can we have a regulation that just stops it?
Yeah.
And of course, you can't stop it. But on the other side of it, there are organizations that are developing great adaptability where they are saying it's fluid, it's changing, and how can we make it easier for you to change with flow?
Yeah.
And that is a really important part of the leadership. How can I make it less risky for you to consider changing with the flow?
Right.
And I think as we look at things, to me, I see the cycles coming. When I was a kid, maybe when you were a kid, everything was frozen food, prepackaged, cooked, uh, it was this TV dinner
TV dinner
kind of world,
in the tray. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they said, and my mother said, because she would say when we were grinding our coffee, because when I first got married, we got a little hand coffee grinder.
Uh,
What are you doing that for? You buy a jar of Folgers crystals and you just put a teaspoon in and you make a cup of coffee. Well, what she didn't realize was, like, we just had that coffee here.
Right.
That tasted a lot better than the old Folgers crystals in
Yeah.
the hot water.
Right.
The Keurig thing that you had.
Yeah.
So she didn't realize that. The thing is that people are taking and they are saying, how can this be a great experience for my kids?
Right.
How do I make them the waffles that are going to be the most fun? How do I make breakfast fun? How do I make our dinner time a really good family experience? And so when I was a kid, the way that they did that was instant mashed potatoes, TV dinner, canned everything. And now you see people saying, no, I was just at the farmer's market near my home.
Yeah.
There had to be maybe 1,000 people there. It was huge. And
Right.
everybody is there looking to go direct to the farmer. And what are they going there for? They're going there for the taste and the flavor. So another thing that's going to occur in the future is, as we give free time and as we're going to put it into things that really enhance our life.
Mm-hmm. That's
and what are those things? Well, food is a foundation of an enhanced life.
Right. Well,
the family dinner table.
Yeah. I love what you said about experience, because, one of the reasons we changed the name of our company to Reliably Ratermann is there's a clear experience we want people to have. What does reliability bring to somebody?
Yeah.
Peace of mind. You can spend your time on some other things. You have the comfort. You don't feel like you're sitting there on standby. Am I going to get on the plane? Am I not going to get on the plane? That's a terrible feeling. Is it going to show up?
Yeah,
like
anxiety.
Yeah, the anxiety. Terrible, right? And is it going to show up in time? What things could we put in place to be reliably Ratermann? And that's a big focus of what we do, because it's an experience. No different than if you go to a restaurant or something else. What's that experience going to be like? It's funny you say about the farmers market. We have one right across the street from us on Thursdays. And I heard one person say, boy, the things over there are really expensive compared to going to Safeway. And I heard one person say that, but I heard a whole bunch of other people saying, my gosh, they have 9 different kinds of peaches to choose from. They're so good. They're so tasty. And so there's just different views, right? And what are you paying for? But it was packed. People wanted that experience. They didn't just want they wanted the experience of even going to the farmer's market and having that experience and the conversations with the person that actually grew it, or person making the honey, or whatever it might be. So that's pretty cool, the experience.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great one for all of us, right? What experience are we bringing to people?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take this one and put it aside, because that's a repeat. We don't want to repeat. Okay. Oh, man, this is a fun one. What tool or capability would you ask your fairy godmother to grant you? What tool or capability would you ask your fairy godmother to grant you? I could tell you why I like this one so much, because this is almost like one day somebody sat and said, wouldn't it be great if I could just play whatever music I want to, whenever I want to, and all of a sudden somebody says, oh, there could be this concept, right? iPod or whatever it might be. But I love the fact that this is something that normally you wouldn't be able to do, because that's why you're asking the fairy godmother to give it to you, which means the very thing you might there's probably a need for, or opportunity to explore. But not to put, so what tool or capability would you ask your fairy godmother to grant you?
Because I find it so difficult, or because it's so hard and I did not practice it. I mean, I'm not a kid anymore. I should have been practicing this. I didn't practice it. I really would ask for a fairy godmother to give me the ability to write dialogue, to write people talking to each other, conversing, and let that advance the story. The reason I say that is because the idea of using stories to communicate with people is an idea that's built around showing, not telling. Telling is saying so-and-so was miffed. And so that miffed person did this action. I am telling you what took place. Dialogue makes you say, well, if you said that, you're probably kind of PO'd. And that's revealing. It's more, it has greater impact. It goes in directions that you may not even have imagined when you were writing it down. But the ability to do that, I know William Goldman, the man who wrote a lot of screenplays, but a lot of people remember him because Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
That was a story that he wrote to tell his kids.
Oh,
And then it was a screenplay because he was just an incredible, he had like 80 screenplays and Oscars and everything else, William Goldman. And he said the one thing that came to him naturally doesn't come to me naturally. One thing that came to him naturally was he said, I've always had a way with dialogue.
Huh.
So if I had a fairy godmother,
Yes.
I would say, hey, could you give me 10% of what you gave to William Goldman? Because that would make it better for me to do the stories that I want to do in the future.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's almost a different genre of area that you'd be able to write into.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about some of the stories that you've enjoyed and some of the films and even books, I'll bet they were filled with dialogue where you said, oh, look at what she said that, he did this, he said that. Oh, look what this means. And you discovered the story inside the story yourself through the dialogue.
Yeah. You know, I had one I thought would be great. I'm not a good piano player. I've tried to learn to play piano, I thought, but how wonderful would it be if you were a phenomenal piano player and you could walk in, sit down in a room and just change the whole thing in the room by starting to play and all the fun and joy people could have with that. And everything from people doing sing-alongs to, you know, whatever it might be, just being able to that's an amazing talent. That's underrated how you really hear a great pianist, you know, somebody with that skill or somebody like an Elton John or somebody that's got this amazing skill and what that can do to just sit down and be able to just, boom, start playing and change the whole environment or what's going on in that room at the moment. I thought that'd be pretty cool. I also thought this would be a cool one too. Be able to know when people aren't telling you the truth, you know?
Oh, they have a TV show about that. Yeah, it's interesting.
I was saying all this now, but is that really what it is? Or is it this, you know, or what, because, you know, we look at so much in life of what goes on. It all comes down many times down to what's really the truth, what's really going on there. And I thought that'd be a great one to know. Maybe I
would ask her
to
give you the ability to be able to read between the lines.
Yeah. I mean, we all have our gut instincts about different things, you know. I watch those shows about, and I'm always amazed. They have those, they're kind of grab you as they show you, they'll keep you there for an hour as they bring out little bits, but they'll have that person says, oh, they hired this person to kill their husband or vice versa. And you're like, oh, that's not possible. They wouldn't do that. They show the interrogation, and I'm like, see, they didn't do that, blah, blah. And then I'm all bought in. Yeah, they're totally innocent. And then next thing you know, they show the video of them paying the hitman money to like, okay, maybe they are guilty. But it's amazing how I just always thought that would be such a great thing in this world if we just could know what really is true and what's really not, you know.
As a matter of fact, the show's called Poker Face.
Oh,
and so the woman that has this ability that you're talking about gets into trouble. And also gets out of trouble. So it's a very interesting vehicle, but they did one season of it, and I think there's a second one coming up.
Oh,
so it's a streaming show.
Oh, okay.
Called Poker Face, but that
Poker Face.
She has it's like a sixth sense about that's not true.
Yeah.
You just told me a lie. She had to first learn how to stop telling people when she recognized it.
Yeah.
Because that got her in the most trouble. But yeah.
Yeah. But that would be quite a life-changing thing to justice systems and everything, right? Because that is what it is. Okay. Why don't you pick one?
You want a business one?
Sure.
Who do you want to work with? Could be new clients, other businesses, or a new hire.
Yeah.
Who do I want to work with?
If you had your like, man, I really, really wished I could work with them.
I want to work with collaborators.
Okay.
That's what I want to work with.
Okay.
I figure the work I've done up to now, George, is like 1.0, right?
Okay.
In other words, I wrote and helped write. We co-wrote and I wrote and researched and all the rest of it. Those 6 books that you talked about.
Right.
Yeah. So I did that. Do I think that people should look at them? Yes. Would I like somebody to look at them and say, and I see where this could go next? That would be the best of all.
Okay.
I would really like to work with more collaborators.
Yeah.
Whether that means in conversations like this,
right.
Whether that means supporting someone as they're trying to write their own training or development program and just giving them the material.
Yeah.
I love that one when the comedian said, okay, I'm going to bury all my material, or this is the last time I'm going to tell you all these jokes. I'm just giving them. And the kid says, well, can I have this one, mister? And he says, sure, go ahead, kid, have it. I like the idea of giving it all away and having them take it to the next level. So collaborator.
Yeah.
Collaborator is what, if you said, what would you like to work with? I'd like to work with collaborators.
And who do you think would be 2 of the most amazing people that you'd
collaborate with?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that I have, I've met them. I think that they would be, either their mindset would be young, like you have a young mindset, or they would be millennial.
Okay.
Just looking forward to their next 50 years. I don't have 50 years to look forward to.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Yeah.
And that's what I would like to collaborate with them, because I think that I've done a lot of good work, but I'd like somebody else to take it to the next level.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Okay. I'm going to ask you, this is a different kind of bourbon, but still wisdom bourbon. But this is done in a different kind of aged barrel. What's the mistake you think all managers should experience, learn, and grow from? What is the mistake, if you could almost hope they'll have the opportunity to make that mistake, to live through that experience, live through that? I mean, nothing where danger or nothing where safety is an issue. But what's a mistake you think all managers should experience, learn, and grow from?
I think the experience that I had to learn and grow from, and it took me way too long. And I think that other managers have to experience, is that when somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. I was a terrible, not that I didn't notice what you were doing, but I thought, oh, I can change that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can profit from that. I can make that work. And I'm saying to myself, how many times I was wrong. If I just would have listened to them when they told me who they were the first time, I would have made much better decisions. But I put myself into adapting whatever they said so it would suit my goals. So but you can't, you see, people think, oh, you're being judgmental. Okay. You're not being judgmental. What you're doing is you're simply listening to them tell you who they are, what they want, and believing them the first time. That does mean some people you would say, this is enough. I don't need to be around this person a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But with other people, it would be saying, I don't know why I'm pushing them in this direction. They told me this is who they are. Why am I not listening and trying to make them into something that they don't want to be? Why am I not working with their strengths instead of trying to correct their weaknesses? So I think managers have to make that mistake and then learn from it. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Okay.
If not the first time, maybe the second.
Yeah.
God, don't be like me and spend 10 years still trying to remake somebody.
Yeah. Yet you still want to find a way to be supportive, helpful, and you don't want to assume somebody's not able to develop, grow, or be able to do certain things. So you're not saying that. What you're saying is you want to be listening when they say who they are. I mean, sometimes, like I've had people tell me earlier on in their career, I'm not one to get up in front of talk in front of people, George. And I worked with them to where 5 years later, they're out in front putting on a beautiful meeting and doing a wonderful job. They're very thrilled with how they've grown into that. But that's not, they said, they said, I'm not really a person that gets in front of people and talks. So you're not, so maybe you could explain that a little bit more. When you say who they are, is that because they haven't experienced it, they haven't developed the skill set yet, or is it something different than
Well, like in that case, you would, I would say, but they would like the result of having been in front of them and talked to them and been successful.
that?
Okay, so I'd like that result, but I'm not somebody that can do that. I'm listening to what they say, and then I'm going to figure out a way to glide them into proficiency at doing that. Then that's fine. But take another example of that, just in the case of self-protection. A lot of managers will sit and look at a team, and they will have a problem person on that team. And you got to ask yourself, not can the world actually change them? Could Jesus or God himself actually change them? Maybe, but I'm not them. So you should have on your team people that you can work with. And that may mean that you need to go to somebody else and say, am I wrong here? Or is this person and me, do we just not mesh?
Mm-hmm.
In my case, absolutely. I was surrounded by a lot of people, and I've certainly had that group of people that really believed no matter what they said, they showed me that they thought the world was mostly about them. And I'm no good with that kind of person. I need the kind of person who sees the world as mostly, not always, but mostly about other people. And so that's just, it fuels me. It makes me happier. God bless those other people.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be together. You shouldn't be on my team. I shouldn't have that. So if I were to look at this on the other side of it as a manager, I would say it's not my job. I got 7 to 27 people I'm reporting to or responsible for. I need that to grow. I don't need a boat anchor. Now, the boat anchor may not be their fault, but it's not going to be that I'm not going to be able to alter myself enough to make that out of you. Yeah. So the right fit has to be done. And I think one of the ways of doing that and employing other people is to decide who you just can't mesh with. You can't get it. You can't get it together. Now, that doesn't mean when somebody says, like you said, I can't talk out loud, or I don't feel comfortable giving other people direction. Right. But you'd like the result of giving other people direction. So I want to have. So now we work on a program that fits you.
Right. So because some of it can be a training issue and an exposure issue, and that.
And it's a saying. It's not one size that fits all.
Right.
Yeah, it's an adaptability issue.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's places where it's hopeless.
Yeah.
And some of that, you are you, and you've got strengths. And if I'm your manager, I'm going to protect those strengths. And one of the ways I'm going to protect them is I am not going to let you get into a no-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because I don't need that from you. I need you to be high on doing what you want to do every single day.
Yeah.
And so that may mean I edit your team with you.
Yeah.
To simply say, this person and you, that's not a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's also that philosophy that you hear people say is the right seat on the bus, and all that. And, myself, I can remember when I was playing football, sometimes you start out as a tackle or a center, but you really want to be a linebacker, or you want to be a halfback or whatever it might be. And you could find yourself sort of stuck in a spot because you're good at that, right? And that sometimes can happen. And or that's what you know. So that's what you know. So maybe it isn't really the best or right seat on the bus for you, but you've kind of gotten that spot. Yeah. And I think there's opportunities sometimes with people, and managing people is to help them, or we call it mentoring it, to get them to see another opportunity. But sometimes, and I didn't really realize it till later in my career, is that there is some situations where you go, but that is not the right seat on the bus for that person. You know, they do not want to be in that spot. If there's a difference of not having the knowledge, training, and development, it may be a spot that they just don't want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like you're saying that a little bit as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is listening to people, but then it's also not being so strong in your opinion of what needs to be done and what the strategy is going to be that you're going to cram square pegs in round holes.
Yeah. Right.
And that can include people that you just can't succeed with.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't succeed with somebody, but it isn't me.
Yeah. Interesting. That's great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we got one or so more bottles here, and then we're going to kind of wrap up our idea vault. So should we go whiskey or should we go wine bottle? What do you think?
Oh, let's do a wine bottle.
Okay.
Now the wine bottle is, the theory behind it is that these are more practical business,
Yeah,
and these are a little bit more broader issue.
These are more broader, might spark something that's futuristic or down the road. And the wine bottle is going to be more specific, maybe today, kind of looking at your business or looking at your life of what things might come into play. What did you get there? You want me to read it?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay,
because,
I'll read it. Okay.
But it's it's
okay.
perfect.
Uncorked potential red and white blend. We've got here. Oh, it's also grown from the grapes of optimism. I just want you to know that. Okay. What are some of the most important influence factors that you value most when buying from an industrial equipment or supply company? So what are some of the most important factors that you value the most when you're buying from an industrial equipment or supply company?
Underrated. Not because people don't talk about it, but because they won't do what it takes to get it. It's called trust.
Trust.
That's it. That's what it's all about. There are 3 levels of trust.
Okay.
There's the kind of trust that you have when you say, I'm in a jam and I got to find somebody quick. They send you signals. And those signals you read as, I can trust them. I'm not giving them my car or my kids, but I can trust them to help with this. At least they're sending me the right signals.
Okay.
There's the next one that becomes predictive trust, where you start saying, okay, I have been into the restaurant 3, 4, and they get these things right. They get me. They get what I like. They get I can predict that I'm probably going to trust them. Then there's the last one, relationship trust. And that's what we all are trying to build towards with people, is the kind of thing where somebody says, if I'm in trouble, they will help.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm in trouble because I caused trouble. They don't care. They just help.
Right.
So that's a relationship. That's where you say, I got your back.
Right.
And so there are 3 levels of that trust. You have to start with the first one because you got to be trusted quickly. And you got to send the right signals to do it. Second of all, you then have to take the predictability, which is what you talked about, I think, when you start talking about reliability. Reliability, predictability, thinking through things, worrying it, being the one that takes the anxiety out of the relationship. That's there. And then the third level, what do I look for most in a supplier? Now, the only reason I bring that up is because somebody in India recently told me about a story. They deal with some very tough buyers in the industrial market. Very tough. Automotive industry. You know how tight the margins are. These guys are grinding every single second for the penny that they can get out of whatever it is that they're purchasing, because that's how tight their margins are to operate. So he's telling me the story. He creates industrial equipment. And he's telling me the story as he's going through, and he is building relationship trust with particular people, in that they can count on him. He has predictability, but he's also thinking about the future, and he shares with this person an innovation that he's going to bring in. And the person says to him, let me remind you, this is a tough industrial buyer with decades under his belt. The person says to him, if you can do that, I should be giving you 2-3% more for every contract. Now, that's heaven in the sales business.
Yeah.
I should be giving you more? When's the last time a customer said that to you?
Yeah.
But why did they say that? Because they trust him so much and trust the company so much that they were just honest. you are going to be saving me this much money if you do those things. I should be giving you 2 to 3% more. So if you come back with 2 to 3% more, I'm telling you, I'm signing it because of what you are adding to this.
He saw the value. Yeah.
He saw the value. Yeah.
I love the concept of trust, because that is such a big, and you're right about that. Relationship, it's not about the money. You're going to take care of somebody to help them out with the situation they're in. It's not because, I can make some money at it. Yes, we all need to make money to be able to pay our bills. But relationships are so different, and you hope your customers, if you've done your job right, see you that way. That would be the goal, right? I mean, the reliable Ratermann, that's what my hope would always be, is that they see the relationship there. We're there to help in any way we can to where they're trying to get to.
Now, that's a perfect example of when somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. There are people on this planet, I'm sorry to say it, there are people on this planet who absolutely don't respect trust. Oh. They are constantly wheedling and scheming and all the rest of it. Sometimes you have to fire customers in a business. You have to say, this person doesn't fit. They'll never appreciate what I do. I got that from an attorney, actually it was a firm of attorneys, but I was saying to him, if you could edit your business and get rid of it, what would you get rid of? And he said, I would get rid of, because he was a family law, which means divorce.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he said, I would get rid of the people who, because I put so much into this, who just can't appreciate me. I'd take half the money to get rid of the people that can't appreciate me. Oh, and I said, well, now we know something.
Yeah.
So I would say, trust is what I would look for in somebody I can trust. And if they're not smart enough to know the components of trust and be able to execute that, that tells me something also about their intelligence level.
Yeah.
You've talked about a lot of things you do on reliability. Those are all things that tell me that the gears are turning and you're doing the sums and you're figuring things out. Those are all components of intelligence to me.
Yeah. Well, what I also like about the word about trust is that when you have trust with somebody, you can let your hair down, you can be relaxed around them, and life's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
You can have a lot more fun and really focus on the things you're trying to accomplish. And that's exciting too, to get things accomplished and bring it to fruition. So I love that concept of trust. You did it elegantly, explaining the stages of that. So that's really great. Well, I will tell you what, I have really enjoyed the Idea Vault, and I'm just so happy that you were able to join us. And we got now we didn't have anything to drink, but we have. Are you normally a white wine person, red wine, or a bourbon person?
Well, first of all, I like small batch everything.
Okay.
Why? Because that's where people's personality is.
Okay.
So you small batch me, and I'm interested.
I like that. Small batch me. Okay.
Yeah. Because if a winemaker, come on. I met the daughter of a poultry grower. They're big on ducks. She named it after that. But she just small batch wine. And I said, I've got to taste it. And then I was just a fan. But that's one of the things that you get out of the bourbon experience is these people are putting their personality in these bourbons.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful.
I think you got the title of your new book, Small Batch Me. I like that. Small batch me. Because you're right. It brings all the love and care and personality and thought that they've put into it. And
you told me about your 30-hour barbecue method, and the immediate thing was, boy, I'd like to taste that.
Yeah.
It's what makes everything fun. So small batch, and it looks like you've got a lot of small batch on your shelf there. And I know winemakers, the same story.
Yes, that's true. Well, Laurence, it's been so great to have you here today. I thank you for taking the time out, and enjoyed the High Pressure podcast, but I really particularly enjoyed the Idea Vault. I don't know how I can tell you this, but the Idea Vault timer's set for another 20 minutes till it opens. But we'll find something in here to do for 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm sure of that. Thank you.
That was great. Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay. Thanks for watching. Stay up to date with the latest news in the gas and welding industry by clicking on the subscribe button.
And check out one of our other videos to learn more. Find out more about Reliably Ratermann at rmiordered.com.